Hey, welcome to the Daily Beard for April 8th, 2019, and we're back to Tozer. All right, so Pursuit of God, Chapter 2. Got my book. Chapter 2 is called The Blessedness of Possessing Nothing. All right, this chapter, he looks at how man was made in particular, like a certain spot in his heart, what it was made for. And then he talks about Abraham and Isaac, which he looks at in a way that I'd never seen before, which is just... Okay, basically, it covers the fact that God made things, and they were made for man, but not to be consumed by man, like not to be consuming man as his passion. So inside of man, God made a shrine in his heart. Not a literal shrine, but like this is a figurative shrine. And that shrine is meant for God. It's supposed to be the heart of your heart, if that makes any sense. And that's supposed to be where God sits. And then sin came in the world and changed the gifts. It forced God off the throne because men put the gifts and the possessions and the things that God made for man in God's place. Here's the quote: "There is within the human heart a tough fibrous root of fallen life, whose nature it is to possess, always to possess." So basically, man at its core, like, always wants things. We want, like, you just look at the world today. This is so freaking true. We always want things. I want things. You want things. Everyone wants things. By man, of course, is talking about mankind, humankind, everybody. We covet things. And Jesus talked directly about this, that if you want to follow him, you're going to have to give up those things. And not that we give up everything. Like, I still have a car and stuff like that, but we have to give up the love of those things and the want of those things, and then it's like putting those things at the center of your being to follow Jesus. Tozer talks about the fact that being poor in spirit refers to those who are not controlled by possessions because they don't have them, and because of that, they're blessed in a weird sort of way. And I've seen this firsthand. I've seen some of the people who have nothing who are way happier than some of the people who have mansions and yachts. It's true. Saying that, I'm not giving up my house anytime soon, don't get me wrong, but the more stuff you have, the more stuff pulls you down, and it controls you. So let me get to the story of Abraham and Isaac. You know the story of Abraham and Isaac, I'm hoping. If you don't, Abraham was a guy who was promised, he was an old dude in the Old Testament who was promised that he was going to have as many descendants as the stars, yet he was really old and didn't have a son yet. And so God finally gave him a son, and in the story, comes a time when God says, take your son Isaac and go take him up to the mountaintop, and you're going to sacrifice him. And so in the story, it says Abraham's like, oh, okay, I guess, and takes him to the mountaintop and goes to sacrifice him. And God stops him. And a lot of people hate this story. A lot of people, they're like, God's a stupid God, and God's a terrible God. What kind of God is that? But Tozer looks at this story in a way that I've never seen before. And so what he's saying is, the reason this is done, the reason Abraham was asked to sacrifice Isaac, God never intended for him to actually sacrifice Isaac. But when Isaac was born, Abraham loved him, and loved him in a way that he literally kicked God out of that center part in his heart and put Isaac there. He put all his hopes and dreams and love and everything he could pour into Isaac, and he worshipped him. And God's like, he's not meant for that. He's your son. You're supposed to love him, but you're not supposed to worship him. I'm supposed to be in that central part of your heart. And so for Isaac's own sake and for Abraham's own sake, he literally was like, I got to break this of you. I got to literally make you see this. And Tozer says God literally stepped in to save the father and the son. He paints the whole picture of like what it must have been like that night, like him wrestling with God, thinking, come on, God, why my son, this guy, and then finally just going, okay, fine. I guess I trust you that if I was to kill him, you could bring him back, or that you're going to give me more sons, I guess, or whatever. I don't know. And then he does it. And in the story, of course, God stops him and says, no, okay, I didn't want you to do it. I wanted to see if you were willing to do it. And then it comes to Jesus where he says, whoever lose for my sake will find. And this is what he's basically talking about. Now, Jesus, obviously, the promise thing years later, but it all ties together. It's all the same story. Now, from there, he moves on to talk about other things. restoring the right order in the world, how you're supposed to view possessions and all that kind of stuff. Tozer like covers all that. But this was the pivotal point that I wanted to talk about, was just the Abraham Isaac thing, because I literally had never seen it talked about in that way, and it makes complete sense in that way. God does. If you're like, God's a petty, jealous, stupid God, if you look at it in this way, it makes way more sense, and it totally changes the story in a lot of ways. From a lot of people who have objections to the story that I've heard throughout the years, it turns it on its head and says, no, this isn't him being a jerk. This was him literally loving them and saying, because I love you, I got to break this from you because it's not good for you. This is not healthy. This is not right. And I'm going to teach you that and get you past it. And Abraham moved on and took Isaac out of that seat and put God back in its place and was blessed because of it. So that's chapter 2. Again, if you haven't read Tozer, this is The Pursuit of God, Tozer. If you have A.W. Tozer, if you haven't read it, read it. I'm doing it a terrible disservice in some ways, but I'm also trying to just tell you my thoughts about it. Read the book. It's great. It's amazing. It's fantastic. I can keep going on if you want, but read the book if you're interested at all, or if you're like, I don't necessarily agree with that. Okay, read the book, because he probably describes it a lot better than I do. But yeah, you're going to be getting one of these a week for the next however many weeks, and until the book's done. And yeah, so, and as I talked about, there's this awesome prayer at the end of each chapter, so I'm about to do that, and I'll yeah. Father, I want to know thee, but my coward heart fears to give up its toys. I cannot part with them without inward bleeding, and I do not want to try and hide from thee the terror of the parting. I come trembling, but I do come. Please root from my heart all those things which I have cherished so long, and which have become a very part of my living self, so that thou mayest enter and dwell there without a rival. Then shalt thou make the place of thy feet glorious. Then shall my heart have no need of the sun to shine on it, for thyself will be the light of it, and there shall be no night there. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks for watching. God bless. Have a good night.